Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this webinar about New Music USA's New Music Creator Fund. My name is Scott Winship. I'm the Director of Grant Making Programs here. I'm joining you today from the unceded lands of the Lenape people, otherwise known as New York City. I'm joined on the call by my colleagues in the Grants and Programs Department, Manisha Chowdhury and Christy Ebert, who will be chiming in, answering questions, and guiding us through the session. We're also grateful for the wonderful ASL services of Candace and Jamie, who is our captioner from SignNexus. If at any time during the webinar you have any issues and you can't see our interpreters, please let us know in the chat and we'll address it. Just a little background, the Creator Fund was formed in 2021 through a reorganization of our funds in order to more directly support individual artists, initially during the difficult times of COVID, that had been particularly challenging for individual artists. We decided to continue this model based on feedback we received on the value of grants to individuals. This year, due to the high demand for the program, we've made some changes to the program. Our goals in doing so are to increase the percentage of applicants per US region receiving support, so giving you a better chance of receiving support ideally, streamline the application and evaluation process, and reduce wait times from the application submission to decision, notification, and award. The main change to note is that beginning this year, we will offer regional application cycles based on the 4 main geographic regions as outlined by the US Census Bureau, that being the West, the South, the Midwest, and the Northeast Mid-Atlantic regions. We'll cover this in more detail shortly. Aside from this, fundamentally, the program remains the same as in previous years. So what will happen on this call is that we have a lot of information to get through, but hopefully we'll have plenty of time to answer as many questions throughout. We'll be going over the guidelines for the program as well as the application itself. We'll do our best to answer questions as we go along, but there should be time at the end as well to answer additional questions. It'll be most efficient if you could please leave your questions in the Q&A section and not in the chat. That'll make it easier for us to answer them. If we run out of time and or somehow missed your question, it is being captured here and the answers will be posted along with this video to our site and our YouTube channel. We are recording the session and it will be available shortly after today. With that, let's dig in. So today we're going to go over about the program, our approach and the changes that we're implementing this year. We'll talk about eligibility, what the program supports and does not support, the awards that we have available. We'll dig into the application questions and the requirements, and we'll go over the review process and review criteria. So again, please, if you have questions, please leave them in the Q&A section and not the chat. That would be the best. Thank you. So the New Music Creator Fund offers grants to individual music creators working in any genre who need support to reach the next stage of their creative practice. The program supports costs related to creation of new work and new projects developed in collaboration with other artists and practitioners. And we'll talk about collaboration in this sense means basically you doing the work with somebody else, whether that be an individual artist, either in music or another discipline, an ensemble, an organization, basically you working with somebody else to have the work come to life. Individual performers may also apply if their collaborator is a music creator. So for us, how we define music creator is basically refers to any individual composer or artist, music creator, who creates original music. That means the music creator may be a performer, or they may create music for others to perform. All these are eligible to submit applications. In terms of definition of new music, we basically think that new music, well, basically we champion and support new music in all its forms. So every sound is welcome. So anyone who is influencing the future of music creation and sound is creating new music. We don't think about it in terms of genre. So anybody creating new music and new sounds is welcome to apply. A few basic timeline issues. Our application will open October 31st and will close at midnight Eastern Time on November 14th. It's an online application portal. You must submit an application online. There's the link. You can find it on our website as well. Decisions and internal notifications will be made by the end of March, and then we'll have a public announcement in June. So some of the changes that we've made this year is that, as I mentioned earlier, is that we're hoping to increase the percentage of applicants per US region who are receiving support from our program. We'd like to streamline the application evaluation process and reduce the wait time from when you submit your application to when notifications are given, so that you're not waiting a long time for that notification. Just a brief update on what we mean by our geographic regions. So beginning this year, we'll offer regional cycles based on the 4 geographic regions: the West, South, Midwest, Northeast, and Mid-Atlantic. And those states are. So for this year, we are focusing on New York State and or the Western or Southern states and territories listed on the next slide. All Creator Fund applicants can only apply to the program every 2 years. So basically what that means is that if you're applying from the West or the South this year, there won't be another cycle for the West or the South until not next year, but the year after. And if you apply from New York State this year, you would also be able to, would have to wait a cycle before applying again. So these are the states and territories listed in each region. You can find those on our website and in our FAQs. So applicants from these regions are eligible to apply this cycle in November 2024. In November 2025 cycle, those artists based in the Midwest, the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, and also New York State are eligible to apply, but not until November 2025.
Hi, I'm Krista, and I'm going to go over the eligibility with you. I'm joining you from sunny Akron, Ohio. So first, I want to share that students are not eligible for the Creator Fund grant. So any degree-seeking person is not eligible to apply. Please apply after you have completed your studies. The applicants must be at least 21 years of age, and applicants must have a minimum of 3 years of experience as a professional musician. And how we define professional musician is those who have received public performances of their work or who regularly perform music publicly. And then you have to receive financial compensation for at least some of your work. All applicants are required to watch this application webinar, so congrats, you're doing it. Thank you so much. And then all applicants must read the Creator Fund FAQ. This will help you with your application. Here's the eligibility criteria regarding collaboration. So this fund encourages new collaboration. A collaborator may be another musician, an artist from a different discipline. It could be an ensemble or a venue and presenter or a producer. It's someone who you work with that's going to bring your project to fruition. The collaboration could focus on research and development time that you need with your collaborator. It could be for a live or virtual performance, the creation of new work, or a recording, so a record or a music video. And the applicant and collaborator eligibility, this is for individuals only. Organizations cannot apply. We have another grant for that called Organization Fund that's open in March. Each applicant can only submit one application, please. And if an applicant appears on another application as a collaborator, only one of those projects containing the applicant may be selected for an award. And if a collaborator appears on another application, only one of those projects containing the collaborator will be selected for an award. It's just because we want the funds to go to multiple people and not be the same person in different projects. Applicants may not have received an award from any New Music USA program that funded individuals in 2023 or 2024, so the last two cycles. And the geographic eligibility, it's only for the person who's submitting the application. It's not for the collaborator. Your collaborator can be anywhere within the United States. This is about the project's eligibility. The fund, it only supports new work. So projects that involve the revision or arrangement of existing work is not eligible. Projects that have already been publicly presented, either in part or in whole, those are not eligible either. And then performances and presentations or completion of projects, they should not take place before June 2025 because that is when the grant is awarded. It's not a retroactive program. And then requests solely for promotion, marketing, and PR are not eligible. That could be a portion of your budget request, but it can't be the whole ask. Here's the fun part. This is what the Creator Fund supports. Time that you need to create new materials and initiate new collaborations with artists. So the creation fees, performer and collaboration fees, we want you to be able to pay yourself and the artist to create the work that you're making. It can cover project-specific equipment, recording costs, PR and marketing if it's a portion of your budget, technical assistance and skill building, digital presentation, the creation of a music video, workshopping, joint research and development into new project ideas, and then other costs that you consider to be essential. So that could be childcare for yourself or for the collaborating artists. The fund does not support benefits or fundraisers. It does not support competition fees. Projects that are already 100% funded are not eligible. And then projects that have already been completed are not eligible. This fund is not for international collaborators. And then individuals who are enrolled in a degree granting program are not eligible. We can make between 50 and 60 awards of up to $5,000. The average award is $3,000. New York receives about 40 to 45% of the award, and that works out to be 24 to 25 artists. And then the South and the West will receive 55 to 60% of the awards, and that's going to be 33 to 36 artists. And here's the reason for that. Here's our funding transparency. We are a nonprofit as well, and we have restrictions from our funders. So 25% of the creator and organization fund applications that we must award must include the creation of new work. And we also have some geographic restrictions that we have to follow. 54% of our grants budget, it's available without geographic restrictions. 37% is restricted to New York City-based artists and organizations. 7% is restricted to New York State-based artists and organizations. And then 2% is restricted to California Bay artists and organizations. That's not saying that only 2% will be funded, that's just our limit, lower end. New Music USA is committed to inclusive and equitable treatment across all of our activities. And we serve a diverse community of applicants and grantees, and we welcome the unique contributions that all artists brings in terms of their education, opinions, religion, culture, music styles, ethnicity, race, gender, gender identity and expression, nation of origin, age, disability, sexual orientation, languages spoken, religious beliefs, and geography. And we encourage applications from all people, including Black, Indigenous, people of color, LGBTQIA+ artists, and artists with disabilities. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague.
Yeah, now
Thank you so much.
We'll dig into the application itself, what we're requiring from application. And basically, you can move to the next slide. The application is split into three main sections. The first section is work samples. The second section is a narrative, and in the third section is a budget. So with work samples, you have the ability to submit 2 to 3 work samples that demonstrate recent work by you and or your collaborating artists. You may provide links to YouTube, Vimeo, or upload MP3 or MP4 files. Please note that we have a file size limit that just makes the system work better. We suggest that the sample you submit is somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes per work sample. It's usually very good practice to, if you have a longer sample in particular, if you provide starting points or cues as to where you want the panel to start listening from, that helps them best utilize the time available to evaluate exactly what you want them to hear. If your video is longer, like I said, please include some cues. A few things to think about. In terms of work samples. It's generally good practice to submit the most recent work samples, something that a panel can evaluate your current work on. Please provide media that's relevant to your project and makes sense within the context of what you're submitting. Please and choose intelligent starting points. So again, you want to direct the panel as best you can in their listening experience. You want to craft their experience as much as you can, so you're getting their attention where you want it most. We have space for 2 to 3 work samples. Please use that space. Don't just submit 2 work samples. Try to submit 3 if you can. More is usually better. Gives the panel more opportunity to hear your work or the work of your collaborators and make a better assessment. Stable video is best. General practice in terms of submitting video, and it's always good to run your work samples by another party, somebody else who hasn't seen your work, or somebody else to give you an objective viewpoint on your work samples. Don't provide old work samples. We want to know what the work is that you're working on now versus what you worked on 10, 15 years ago. Please don't assume that the beginning is the best place to start. If there are work samples that have a lot of dead space in the beginning, the panel has limited time to view and evaluate the proposals. So you really want to direct them and utilize that time as best as possible. Don't provide shaky or low quality video. And don't forget to include work samples of vital participants, people that might be instrumental in the work that you're creating. That could be one of your collaborators or other folks involved in the project. The narrative contains 4 questions. You can complete the narrative either through a written response or by uploading a video or audio file where you articulate the answers to the questions. That's really up to your preference. We ask that you only submit one, though, either a written response or a video or audio response, as the panel doesn't have time for reviewing both. So please choose one option and use that. The first question we want you to answer is to just tell us about the proposed project and the collaboration that you're working towards. Tell us about the project, who you're collaborating with, and why. Is this a new collaboration, building on an existing collaboration? Would this collaboration happen without New Music USA support, or is this an ongoing collaboration? Question 2, we want you to tell us about the impact this project might have and the difference it could make in advancing your or other participants' careers. So how might it move you forward into the next stage of your creative practice? What happens once the project's completed? What does success look like for the project? And how might the work impact or contribute to your community, whether it be a community of artists or a community that you're working in? And that's dependent on the project, of course. The third question is that we want you to outline the need for support. So how you want to use the money, the urgency of support right now, how would you use it? Uh, why do you need support right now? Why is it important to do this work at this stage in development? Why is it important for funding from this program? And do you already have support? And it's fine if you have support. Just let us know how we can best be of use in providing funds for the project. Maybe it's the last bit to get it through the next stage, or maybe it's the sole source of support. That's fine. And then the last question is basically, when will you do the work? So we want you to share your estimated timeline. And so the project could be in progress or not yet started, but a few things to keep in note is that the project should be active or in process at least by March 2025. We ask that it not be completed before June 2025. Again, as Krista mentioned, this is for projects in the future, not projects in the past. And then, if the project is many years away from funding, we ask you to wait until another cycle to come to us when it's more immediate. You will have 2 years to complete the project, so think about it within those terms. The last element, oh, sorry, and just a few common errors that we noticed in some of the applications that we receive is that in the narrative, often we get narratives that are too short or vague or don't address the questions that we're asking or the criteria that we have. So be sure to answer those questions. Give us some detail. If it's too short, it won't make it to the next stage. So please make sure that you're answering the questions. In terms of work samples, please, like I said, provide cues. Please don't provide promo reels. Those are hard to evaluate because they're such short snippets of content. Please make sure the work samples are representative of the work and you, and make sure that you represent your collaborators. Alignment, think in terms of the panel review. We ask in our application for you to outline a primary genre and some secondary genres for your project. And this is just helps us best align who should be reviewing the projects. So if you're a jazz artist, make sure that you tick that, and we'll make sure that other jazz panelists will be reviewing the work. In terms of dates, please provide meaningful dates versus vague dates. What is your timeline? Do you have has the work begun? When will it begin? What are your benchmark for the project, and when will it complete? These can be, somewhat tentative at this time because we know that projects evolve and might change over time, but please provide some outline of what you imagine the timeline to be. And then we're going to talk about budget in a second, but please be specific in your budget in terms of what the expenses go towards. A few other things to think about in terms of effective project narratives is please read the guidelines carefully. There's a lot of information in there. Read the FAQs. There's a lot of information in there on how to create a successful application. Please, I stated this before, but please answer the questions that we ask. That's how you'll be evaluated. If they're not answered, and then it becomes very difficult to evaluate the project. Some ways to think about this would be to think about, what are the activities? What activities does the project consist of? When will it happen? When did it begin? When will it end? What are some milestones or benchmarks for the project? Who's leading the team? Who else is on the team? What's their experience? Where does the project take place? And why is this project relevant at this time? Why are you and your team the right person to lead it? Why are you taking it on now? Why is it important to you? And then how we organize the project activities. Please be mindful of character limits if you plan on submitting a written narrative. Those are listed in the application. We also have a limit in terms of an audio or video response. I think it's 5 minutes. And don't rush on this part. Make sure that you take your time, draft your responses, review them, and if you can, have somebody else read it over just to make sure that it all makes sense. So there's no lingering questions. In terms of the budget, we ask you to please outline how you plan to use the funds, as well as any funding you may have received or anticipate receiving for the project. This is what the budget form looks like in the system. It's an open grid, so you basically would just write a description of what the budget line item is and how much it costs. We ask you in the numerical section, please only use numbers and decimal points. Please do not put in commas, as that will mess up the formulas in the system. So please use numbers and decimal points. A few things to think about with regards to budget. So the budget could include support for the time you need to create new material. It could be, the artist fees for you or your collaborators. It could be creation fees or time for research and development, workshopping. It could involve project-specific equipment. This would be something that's specific for this project. One thing that we see a lot in budgets are requests for a new laptop that wouldn't necessarily fall under the category of a project-specific equipment, as that is used for a lot of different things. So if you need to buy a specific piece of equipment for this particular project, that could be eligible. Recording costs, including mastering, mixing, editing, all those things are eligible through the program. PR and marketing is eligible as a line item. It should not be the sole request. It should be just a portion if you are interested in having some PR marketing associated with a new album release or some new project, that's fine, but it should not be the sole request. Technical assistance and skills building, we could support digital presentation or the creation of music videos, workshopping, R&D, I mentioned those things. And then lastly, other costs you might consider essential, such as child care for yourself or other collaborating artists. We know it's challenging to be an individual artist out there. So other costs that might be necessary for the project to come to fruition. Some things to think about in crafting your budget. Please be specific about your expenses and where those numbers are coming from. So instead of just putting in artist fees and then the number $2,000, what does that mean? That's a percussionist at $200 an hour for 2 5-hour recording sessions. Please try to be specific about how these numbers are arrived at. That will give us the most context and understanding of the project. And please make sure your budget aligns with your narrative. So all the costs that you have in your budget should align with what you're telling us in the narrative about the project. Sometimes we'll see budget items that don't align with that or seem out of left field, and it hasn't been explained in the narrative. So please be sure to make sure that the two align. And they should have a clear connection back to the work being done. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the panel review process. So New Music USA uses a peer panel review process. So we engage roughly about 50 panelists across the country to review the proposals. They each get a subset of the applications. We try to align the projects mostly by genre. At this point, sometimes they'll be about type of project as well, but often around genre. So think about that when you're picking a primary genre, who best would be representative to review the work that you're doing. And I know that's genre classifications are not ideal in we are becoming a genre-less music community, and I understand that. However, it helps us best align evaluations. And you can choose other genres as well, so that gives it a little bit more context and allows. Can you go back one slide, Anisha? So the review process has two kind of stages to this. The first is the applications will be screened by the staff for completeness and make sure that they meet the eligibility requirements. So please make sure your application is complete. Most often it won't let you submit unless it is, but make sure that you've taken your time, completed all the things that we're asking for you. And then, as I said, the second stage will be a peer review process. The New Music Creator Fund has four review criteria. First is artistry, or the artistic merit of the project and the artists involved. And that's based on the submitted work samples or the existing body of work. So think about those work samples when you're submitting. The second review criteria is impact, the difference this project might make in the next steps of your and other participants' careers as a professional artist. Third criteria is need, how you want to use the money, the urgency of support now. And then the last review criteria is collaboration. So the strength of the collaboration is this collaboration going to create the project? Is it going to come to fruition? And whether or not this involves a new collaboration where you're moving in a new direction, or maybe it's an existing collaboration where you're working with folks that you worked with before, but you're taking it into a new direction. A few things that the panel, some questions that the panel might think about when evaluating each one of these criteria. So these are some things that the panelists might consider when thinking about artistry. So what does this project or this work represent an opportunity for artistic growth or stretch, innovation? What's its impact on creative practice? Does the music display originality of sound and artistry? Is there potential? Do you hear potential in the work? Does the samples demonstrate strong craft and technical ability, musicality? What is the level of experience in the demonstrated work samples? And then in terms of impact, a lot of these are reinforced in the questions we're asking you. So how will this project move you to the next stage of your creative practice? Does the project incorporate exploration? Is it considered? Does it reveal something about the work that you're doing in yourself or the world? Why is it important at this moment in time to lead this work? Why now? Why this project? What's important about it? How does it move you forward? What happens once it's completed? What does success look like for the project? What happens next? How does this move forward? And then how might it contribute to the community if that's applicable? In terms of need, we want to know, how you would use the funds to in service of the project. So, you can ask for our funding ranges from, our average grant is $3,000 and goes up to $5,000. So maybe your project is $5,000 and the totality of the grant would go towards the project, but maybe your project budget is bigger than $5,000. Where would New Music USA's support be best useful if that's the case? So let's say you have a $20,000 budget. Where would $5,000 be most useful in the project itself? Is that in your time or your collaborators' time? Is it in getting some equipment? Is it in the editing and mastering of a recording? Where would the funding be most useful? Do you pay yourself? Are you paying yourself and your creators for this work? Please outline that in the budget. Would this work happen without our support? And why is it crucial at this time? In terms of collaboration, we want to hear a little bit more about, who you're collaborating with and why. Why is it important now? Is this a new collaboration, an existing collaboration? Are you, is this a new exciting opportunity to work with an artist of a different discipline, or it's an opportunity to deepen a relationship that you've had in the past that you want to continue in a new direction? Um, uh, why now? Why this project now? Talked about that. Do the costs relate to a collaboration with the other artists? So make sure that you have some understanding there of in the budget of how you're paying yourself and your collaborators. And again, would this collaboration happen without support from the Music USA? So support from New Music USA, due to the high volume of applications received, last year we received 1,500 applications. By moving to a regional round, we're hoping to lessen that number of applications, but we still receive a large number of applications. We ask that you attend this webinar, read our FAQs. We have offering 2 additional Q&A sessions, one next week on October 29th, one the week following on November 7th, where we will be available to answer additional questions that you might have or anything that might come up. All of these sessions are recorded and will be available for viewing at any time. And as we said, we're capturing questions now, and if we miss any, we'll make sure that we answer them after the call and post them along with this video. If you have technical issues with the site, if there's something that is a glitch or not working with the site, please email grants@newmusicusa.org with technical issue in the subject line, and we'll do our best to address you. Our application online portal is a third-party portal, so if there's an issue with the site, it's best for us to know that we can try to get it resolved as quickly as possible. That would be the best way if you run into a problem. Notifications and any communication about your application will be done through our application portal, which is SurveyMonkey Apply. The emails will come from that system, so please add noreply@mail.smapply.net to your contact list to ensure that you receive these communications. All notifications about your work will go from this email address to your email that you supply when you submit an application. So make sure that you have that. Oftentimes they end up in junk or spam mail, so please make sure that you mark that down. If your project is awarded, you will be required to document the grant-funded activities and keep a recording of expenses and submit that with a final report when the project is completed. And yeah, and that's just information about the Q&A questions, and we'll track you. Yeah, so all of this will be posted after the fact as well. So let's see if we can get to some of these questions. I'm just reading through some of the questions. One of the questions is it better to show that a project can happen without support from New Music USA, or better to show that is likely wouldn't happen without support from New Music USA? I think it depends on the project. We know that some projects won't necessarily be able to happen solely with the small amount of grants that we can provide. Our top end grant is $5,000, and that can only go so far to support. So I think if you can make a case for why our funding is important now for the project, I think that's the most important part. So, if it already has some support behind it, that's totally fine. And we don't want to necessarily be the sole supporter of it, but we want to be able to make sure that the awards that we can fund will have an impact on the project itself. Would using funds for album art qualify as part of a budget? Yeah, I mean, I think that would be part of if you're submitting it, if you're creating a new recording and album art is part of that process, then that could be a line item of that process. I think it would be a harder argument to make that the sole request, but as part of the overall project, I think that would be fine. Ah, so are projects with both US-based and international collaborators eligible? I'm glad you brought this up, Will. Can funds be used to support the portion of collaboration that will take place in the US? So the funding that we have available is only available to US-based artists or organizations. You can have an international collaboration as part of your project. That's totally fine and eligible. However, any funding that we award would not be able to be directed to that international partner, whoever that happens to be. So if you're, say, one of the things that sometimes we might see a request for is a composer having a recording project overseas with an orchestra based in Europe. Um, we would be able to support travel for the composer and composer's time to go overseas to participate in the recording process, but we would not necessarily be able to pay for the musicians, say, for that European orchestra to perform. So there is a little bit of the difference, but they can certainly be a collaborator. So think about that in terms of your project. If you have an international collaborator, where can the funds be best directed? So this goes to where the impact of our funds might be most useful in your project. So I hope that answers your question. Does the grant support touring? We have had some requests for touring. I think it would be something that we can entertain. I'd want to hear about why this is important tour at the time, and the impact that would have on the development of the group. Typically, how long do you give a person to complete a project? We have a timeline of generally 2 years for completion. If that runs into some snags, that's understandable, and you can ask for an extension, and we're usually pretty generous with those, depending on the situation. So we generally give about 2 years for completion, but if it needs to go further, you would just contact us. We might ask for an interim report or an update on the project, and then before agreeing to an extension. But um, there you go. If the project will finalize after June 25th, when would the final report should be submitted? So I think there was a little bit of a typo there in terms of our PowerPoint. Since we're giving 2 years for projects to complete, uh, um, we can have that final report after June 2025. I have 2 addresses, one in NYC and one in Vermont. May I apply this fall? Uh, where are you based doing your work? I think that is really the question here is, and yes, awardees from 2024, we did not, we've seen split states. So where you're based most doing your work, where is the work being done, that kind of thing. So that would be the most useful to know. Let's see. When we are submitting the proposal, we'll be able to save as a draft and come back to the application where we left off, or do we need to submit in full at the time of submission? You can save your application as a draft and come back to it at any time. The system will show your progress. And so you will be able to come back to it anytime. So yeah, feel free to start an application and then come back to it and revisit it. That's totally fine. Does one submit number one audio video first? Does one submit the additional sections of the application after part one has been accepted? Um, we are asking you to complete the full application at the time. That would include the audio and video work samples, the narrative, and the budget. Submit that all in one go. It will all be evaluated as a one complete package, so we don't split it up and have it reviewed just as the work samples and et cetera. So please complete the full application, including work samples, narrative, budget, and that'll all be reviewed uh, at the same time. Am I eligible if I have over 3 years of experience, but I had a 7-year break in between? I started in 2012, but from 15 to 22, I had a break without music performing. Yeah, that should be fine. We don't need it necessarily to be continuous. We want a overall musical experience, that you have some experience, uh, and that you would deem yourself a professional musician. If we ask for $5,000, do you either say yes, no to 5,000, or come back and say we'll give you 2 or 3 instead? So we do offer partial grants. So if you ask for $5,000, you may not be able to, based on where our funding is at the time and how the application scores, we may not be able to give you the full amount. So we would award a partial amount. Our average award is $3,000. So we do generally we try not to give less than $3,000 unless a project is requesting less than that. So the lowest we'll tend to go would be $3,000 up to $5,000, unless the project is only looking for $1,500 for one element of it. So um, someone's typing the answer to that question. Do we have any other questions? Any other questions? We have some time. Here's some more questions. I am a composer who lives in New Orleans. If I am collaborating with a US performer who recently moved to Europe, would the project still be eligible as long as we conduct all activities related to the project in the US? Just reiterating, having an international collaborator, even an expat, is fine. However, the funding would have to go to the US based costs. So that would be artists based in the US, or organizations based in the US, or work being done in the US. So that makes sense. Let's see. Oh, someone else is looking. I'm just checking to see if there are any other questions. Do we ever accept grant proposals off cycle? Unfortunately, we don't have the capacity to accept grants that aren't in the current cycle. So please, align the project to whatever cycle we happen to be in at the time. This year it's West, South, and New York. And we just don't have the capacity to be able to manage proposals out of the current cycle. How many New York State grants will be awarded approximately? I think we had this number up. I'm just going to double check it to make sure I'm not speaking out of turn. So generally we award, let's see, not finding it right now. Generally we're looking to award somewhere between 50 to 60 awards. And think that last year we did around 25 to 27 New York-based awards and around 35 to 36. Maybe my math isn't adding up, but around from the other regions. So somewhere in that range, 25 probably from. What format can we submit the work samples in? Do they need to be uploaded, or can we use a YouTube link? You may use a YouTube link. The work samples can be a YouTube or Vimeo link, or you can upload an MP3 or MP4. Take a look at the FAQs. We have a specific way we want these YouTube videos to be embedded. So make sure you're following the correct format. So have a look at the FAQs to make sure that the format makes sense. Otherwise, it may not embed correctly, but you can certainly use a YouTube a link. Correct. Oh, where did I see this? Clarifying that the Midwest is not part of the cycle this year. That's correct. The Midwest will be in November 2025. That will be next year's cycle. If you are applying with someone who you have never worked with, is it better to represent their work on the application, their completed collaboration with someone else, or would it be better to share an earlier draft, something that they're doing on a project you are proposing? That's a good question. So if you never worked with the artist before, that's fine, and we understand that you wouldn't necessarily have joint work that you can submit as a work sample together. So I think having a representative sample, you basically in the work samples, you want to submit the best work that you can. So if there's a good sample of the collaborator working in collaboration with someone else that's not you that represents the work that you hope to be doing together, I think that that is totally fine. And then you would submit a work sample of your work that you feel is demonstrative of what you're doing in the project that you're doing. That totally makes sense because we understand that, particularly with new collaborations, you won't have that sort of already existing work together. So basically, the representative samples of each would be good. What program will be the best if my project will cost more than $5,000? You can certainly apply to this fund if your project is more than $5,000. We would just only be able to award a portion of that. So you would have to probably find funding for the rest of it somewhere else. So it's totally fine to come to us with a project that's over $5,000, just with the understanding that we would only be able to fund a portion of the overall project. Given the time frame from submission to receiving a grant, what if the priorities shift for an artist since it is a year in between submission and proposal? It seems as if there could be changes in direction of how the funds get allocated. There might be a little confusion because we are hoping to, so our application deadline is November 14th, and we plan to have notifications out by March. So there shouldn't be too big of a delay between there, November to March. It's a few months. Hopefully there won't be substantive changes from what you submitted your proposal to when you were awarded. If that's the case, then we need to have a conversation about what those changes might be. If you were awarded and the project changes over the course of the collaborative process and the creative process can take lots of different terms. So understanding that sometimes projects can shift from what you originally proposed, that is understandable. We just ask for an update and how those changes are occurring, and we probably have a conversation and ask for sort of updated report on what those changes are. So we understand that projects change, and that can happen. So we can have that conversation at the time. Are work samples made in 2018 or 2022 old? Not necessarily. I think generally want to submit work samples that demonstrate the work that you're doing now. So if you feel like these work samples are demonstrating the work that you're doing now, or will provide the panel the best representation of your work, then that's fine. However, if your work has shifted or and taken a turn, and they're not representing your current work, then I would advise newer work samples if you can. When will the funds of the grant be distributed? Those happen pretty quickly after we make internal notifications would happen in March. At that point, we would provide a letter of agreement that would need to be signed. Once those letters or agreements are signed and various materials that we require for our press release are collected, then we usually send out the payment. The payment for this grant is a one payment lump sum. It's not broken up. So once those initial requirements are fulfilled, then we can make a disbursement fairly quickly. Let's see. I've got just time for like one or two more questions. Do you support composers who are collaborating with musicians to record a score for an independent documentary series? In this case, the independent film collaborators don't have the budget to support recording and hiring the live musicians, and we will be seeking funding for this. Thank you so much. Yes, we would support that. That would be fine. That seems all to line up okay. So yeah, that would be fine. We also have another program called Real Change, which you can find on our website that is specifically for film composers. So you might want to check that out as well, which provides support for projects that are needing some additional support. So check out Real Change as well. But yes, we would support that through the Creative Fund. We're just about at time. So I'm going to try to answer this one last question regarding the proverbial impact and innovation. How are making album recordings play as in consideration and prioritization? Not sure I quite understand the question. So having a new recording can be impactful for an artist depending on where they are and the recording is for. So one of the biggest, it's actually one of the largest request amounts that we get for this program is for recording costs. I would say about 60 to 65% of the requests have some sort of recording element attached to them. And those could be for a new album that's coming out. It's a first album, maybe it's a new album of new work that's really exciting, and moved, maybe this is a new direction for you, or it moves you to the next stage. So there are a lot of ways to address that in terms of recordings in the application. I think we're about at time. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us on this webinar. As we stated, this has being recorded. If we missed any questions, I apologize if I missed any questions. Those have been tracked throughout, and we'll make sure that we answer those and supply those to this recording and have those uploaded as well. Otherwise, we thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing your applications on November 15th. Well, the deadline's the 14th, so we'll see them on the 15th. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Nice talking with y'all.
Thank you.